My name is Sybil Kolbert. I'm a trauma programming facilitator at Breaking the Chains, a nonprofit whose mission is to provide hope, healing, and restoration to survivors of human trafficking. I am also a rebuilding coach, working with women who are coming out of seasons of transition, crisis, and/or trauma, and equipping them to rebuild their lives one day at a time. In my years of serving in trauma recovery, I've built relationships with many individuals and provided them with tools to improve their mental, emotional, relational, and spiritual health. As someone who has been a part of the church my entire life, I've seen the negative effects that can arise from either a lack of or limited understanding of what it looks like to serve those who have experienced trauma. In order for church to be a truly safe place, I believe it is important for the individual community members and the church as a whole to become more trauma-informed. The fifth principle of trauma-informed care is empowerment, voice, and choice. For many who have experienced trauma, their sense of identity, power, and belonging has been negatively impacted. This principle of empowerment, voice, and choice assists in the rebuilding of important foundations which serve to promote resilience, healing, and recovery. This principle of care allows the individual to share in decision-making, choice, and goal setting to determine the plan of action needed for their own healing. In this model, both pastor and survivor are empowered to advocate for themselves and for others. One key aspect of empowerment is being seen or recognized by others. Research shows that 50 to 70% of the general population has experienced trauma in their lifetime. This means that there are many in your church community, including adult members, children, and staff who've experienced trauma. It is also likely that those in your community whose stories include trauma outnumber those that don't. Trauma is an aspect of the lives of those in our communities that can be used to unify rather than divide. Does your church consider the experiences of trauma survivors when creating sermons, classes, programs, etc.? Is your pastor intentional about using non-specific examples of those whose experiences may not fit the norm? Are messages of identity, power, and belonging including in sermons or class curriculum regularly? If you answered yes to these questions, these are some of the ways you are already helping the trauma survivors in your community feel seen. If you answered no, there is still work to be done. In addition to being seen, being invited is another important element of supporting the empowerment, voice, and choice of individuals. In what ways are the individuals in your congregation empowered to use their voice? If as teachers, office staff, or on boards or committees, are there trauma survivors in those spaces? It is important to make sure that those who serve in your church community, both congregation and staff, feel that their voices are being represented in all spaces. This goes a long way to ensure that those in your community believe that they belong and are valuable in the eyes of the church. Those who have experienced trauma have historically been diminished in voice and choice and have often been the victims of manipulative, aggressive, and coercive treatment. Are there any power differentials in your church community? Does any one person, staff member, or church attender hold more power than another? The idea of power struggles existing in the church is something that is not often spoken about, but that doesn't mean that they aren't present. Choice through vote, ability to ask questions, and to go outside the chain of command is one way to create more equitable conditions related to power in the church. Does your church provide a safe place for trauma survivors to share their needs and concerns and stories? A safe place looks like a place where there is acceptance, where there is a listening ear, where there is no judgment. A place where it's us, not us versus them. Who do you have in your church that already has an understanding of trauma and its impact? Are you using them? Start there. The church may not be the only place providing empowerment, voice, and choice to trauma survivors. However, it is important to be prepared when you're called upon to help.